Do you guys want to know everything there is to know about the E46 to E30 flyout retrofit? Well, stay tuned. E46 flyout retrofit onto the E30 Coupe. Let's remove this stuff so we can get the innards out of here and talk about what it takes to get this thing hooked up into the E30. Wiring, switches, everything else. Let's do that right now. So before we get started, I did want to encourage you guys that if you were to do this retrofit onto your E30, there are a couple of sacrifices that you will need to make. One being that you'll need to cut the rear shelf in order to get the armature arm on the E46 motor to fit through. So there's a modification that you definitely need to make. Also, if you have a coupe, you naturally have a center console with 2 window switches. You'll need to expand that to another 2 switches if you want to operate them each independently with its own switch, or one switch on whatever side you want to operate both simultaneously. So you do need to make some modifications in order to make this work that are semi-permanent. But overall, in my opinion, I think that it's worth it. So this is the rear shelf. There are modifications you need to make to it, namely this area here, where you can see that the motor will actually sit right in this little area here. This is like a vacuous area right behind this, right in front of the seatbelt. This is the modification you need to make to it on this side so it doesn't get binded up. And there's also preventing it from binding on the other side as well. This is a smaller hole, but I'm actually going to widen it because there was some binding there, so I'm going to make it a little bit wider. But this is a non-reversible modification you need to make to your rear shelf in order to make this fit. Now, when it comes to metal, I always happen to think that there's nothing that's irreversible, but in this case, what I needed to do was I actually welded a stud that comes straight up and mounts to this plate here. And if I were to do it again, I would actually make a through hole part that actually goes through this thing, and it kind of screws on to the back side here, and there's a little, you can make like a hole here and a nut, and then you can screw it on that way to make it a removable feature. It's removable by removing these 2 nuts, but it's not removable in that you'd have to cut the threads off now if you want to make it work. So yeah, this is a pretty rudimentary setup here that I have, prototyping if you will, but it worked, and it worked really well for a while. So here's the other side for reference, and let me show you why I never productionized this setup, which is why I'm issuing a relatively detailed YouTube video about it, and that is this. I don't have a solution, a permanent solution for affixing the end of this to the actual window. You cannot drill into this window. This window is pressure treated window, so you can drill into this glass, but the second that you actually pierce through and that hole comes right through the glass, it cracks the whole thing, and you basically relieve all of the temper tension that is in that glass. So it's really, you can't drill, okay? You just can't. So I use some rear view mirror adhesive on the end of this thing. I scored this a little bit on this side. This is a black sticker on the opposite side of the window, and basically affixed it that way. So that does happen to come loose, and I am not going to be dealing with customers that come back and say that the product is defective because it doesn't stick to the window. So that is the main reason why I have not productionized this, and that's something that I definitely wanted to try to get over and get through. But yeah, that was a major hurdle that I had come across. As far as the motor actuation goes, obviously the motor goes in and out, and I'll just demonstrate this later, but it goes in and out and it pushes the window out and in as accordingly. The way that this works is on some sort of a ball mechanism here, so it pivots as needed. So the tolerances on the mounting of this can be somewhat sloppy, which is okay. You want to make sure that the position of this while it's in and then out is as straight as it possibly can be. So when you do install this thing, you're not going to have this at some weird angle, like up like that at its extreme. That's not good. These are the 3 major parts that you use to hook up to the motor itself. This is a skirt, and this skirt basically goes on just like this. Okay. This is the ball piece with the slider mechanism on it. The ball kind of clips into here, just like this. Okay, and then when this guy goes over the whole mechanism, it kind of, there we go. When it goes over, it kind of clicks in and it holds everything in place so this doesn't slip out. And then finally, this piece is the aluminum nub, which kind of slides into this guy just like this, right? Slides right in. Come on, there we go. And what I did was I shaved and sanded this aluminum end to match the curvature of the inside of the window. And yes, there is a slight curvature. And then what I did was I pushed the nub on. Then I used the rear view mirror adhesive to secure it onto that. And then that helped to solidify the position of the window when it's closed. The wiring for these motors is quite simple. There's just 2 wires, positive and negative. Each one has its own positive and negative. Basically comes down through underneath and into the center console where it goes to each of these 2 switches. In retrospect, I would have hooked them both up to 1 switch. That way I didn't have to worry about synchronizing them and making sure that they're both open or closed. I very rarely open one without the other anyway, so I wish I would have just done 1 switch. And I am going to end up rewiring it just for the single switch anyway and use this switch eventually for the rear window sunshade. I'm going to get an electric sunshade for this puppy. So yeah, so the wiring of this is very simple, positive, negative, and your lights. This is an E36. I have one-touch window switches for the main windows, but then these are not one-touch. So I wanted to actuate it how I wanted, so I figured that maybe just having a non-one-touch window is better for this application. Yeah, this is the wiring. If you guys have questions about the wiring specifically, shoot me a DM and ask me. I'll be more than happy to help you out. So to wire up the E36 switches is actually quite simple. There's 4 wires, power and ground are on the bottom, and then these 2 wires come from the motor, and it basically just inverts the signal whichever button is pressed, and then that's it. You know, it's basically just 4 wires. Very, very, very simple. And it also provides the power for the lights as well at the same time. So let's get this guy back in there. There we go. Okay guys, full disclosure here for the E30 E46 rear flyout window retrofit kit. No warranty shall be expressed with any of this, okay? The kit will be customizable. You can use either E30 switches and harnesses, E36 switches and harnesses. It'll come with 2 motors. It'll come with the bracketry, not cut like you see here. This is a cut bracketry to size. I'm not cutting the bracketry to size for you to install. There will be cutting, there will be welding involved on your end. There will be a need for you guys to take this aluminum nub that I explained earlier and shave it down to the right curvature to meet the inside of the window. You need to purchase your own rear view mirror adhesive kit in order to put this on, and I am not responsible for if it comes off and you're repairing it or yourself. So a lot of that is on you. Okay, there's some the existing rear window flyout bracketry. I'm sorry, this is a plug for the existing hole that needs to be plugged up. These are also used motors, so there's no warranty on the motors. Guys, if you really want this, I can help you. It'll be on an as-needed basis to help provide you what you need and get you guys off the ground running, okay? So that's what I offer on this. There's no warranty on parts or integration, okay? That's all on you guys. I'm just gonna give you the tools that you need in order to get it done. As you guys continue to go through the process of installing these and figure out where you need to place these motors, keep in mind that in the fully retracted position that this is currently in, that you want there's actually a space here because this is not installed, but you want it to actually pull the window in so it makes a good seal around the edge. It's very important for rain and air when you're going at highway speeds. So you want to pull it in, but you don't want to pull it in too much because then that's going to be a lot of force on that rear view mirror adhesive, and that's not good. So you want to make sure that you pull it in just enough in its fully retracted position. As you can see, I think that this is just too far and it's just too much tension, which is why I believe that it came loose. So I'm going to end up having to adjust this in order to push it out just a tiny bit so that when it is in its fully retracted position, it is comfortably pulling the window in, but not so much so that it actually delaminates the rear view mirror adhesive. So it slides a little bit, right? And you can see as I slid it forward, it actually seems to, it gets nice and cozy with the actual window. So I want to actually get it just close enough where it can make a nice good pull, and I think that that's a good look. I think maybe a little bit closer, maybe something like that, right? So I'll tighten this up, and then I think that this will be in a good spot so I can adjust it and get a good window close and make a good seal. So now let's open the window by pressing the down button. Down is open, right? So you can see that it's moving, and the position of it is in a pretty good spot. I mean, it's a little bit cocked, but it's not that bad. And the window opens just enough to let some good air through, but not too much. I have never had any issue on these windows where it delaminated at highway speeds. Only when you are pulling the window in does it snap sometimes, and then I have to reapply the adhesive. And on really hot days is when it does it more frequently than others. So it is a risk. I mean, you want to do this. This is a risk that you're going to end up getting, or you're going to end up, installing some fixture along the inside of the window to make this work. So a large reason that we made that adjustment on the actual motors is because the motor was pulling away in the fully retracted position from the window, and it caused too much stress on the actual rear view mirror adhesive. So what we need to do is after it pulled off, you can see that the adhesive is actually still there. Maybe not so much on this one. Actually, you can see right the big center ball. But anyway, I need to sand these guys back down and get it to pure aluminum so that I can get a nice good adhesive surface for this and the window. I have to do the window as well and then reapply the adhesive. Now that I've adjusted the motors and in its fully retracted position, it's going to be very close. It's just going to pull just a tiny bit and make that seal that it needs on the rear windows. I think we're going to be in a much better spot here. So there is some adjustment and some rework that's required here. But again, I installed these over 4 years ago, actually more like 6 years ago now. So it does take a toll on the actual assembly. Alright, so here are the two nubs, buttons if you will, sanded down, ready for reinstallation. So good practice with this on the inside of the window is to scrape with a knife to get all the glue residue off from the previous adhesion. And when you do that, you get like this kind of residue on the knife. Let me see if I can show you here. You can see a little residue on the knife. So you gotta scrape it off. And then we need to use alcohol in order to get all the oils off of the area here, okay? That's very important as well. So when you're gluing the nub, right, onto the window itself, right in here, right where the black sticker is to cover the nub, you're gonna wanna use a very small amount of rear window mirror adhesive. I found that the Loctite glass glue actually works the best. It is specifically designed for glass on glass and metal on glass. And since this is aluminum and that's glass, I think this is the best one to do. It really is the most effective way to adhere this flat surface onto that glass. And since now I already have the motor basically adjusted to the right length, this should be a cinch. And what you want to do is you want to apply the dab of glue right in the center, and you want to push on the window and hold it there for 30 seconds. Only after cleaning it. You have brake cleaner, so I'm going to clean the surface of this, I'm going to clean the surface of the window, and then I'm going to adhere it together, and that should finish the installation for the passenger side, and I'm going to end up doing the same thing for the driver's side. While that dries, I want to show you how you can get yourself from this bracket to this bracket. So for those of you who are feeling really adventurous and want to modify the existing bracket, which is the cheapest and, in my opinion, the easiest way to go about it, here's what I think you need to do. The bends are already there for you. It's just a matter of marking them, cutting them, repositioning and welding. Here's where I would suggest making your marks. Cut one there, one there, and then finally one there. Then you have piece 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically, piece 1 is the piece that mounts to the actual motor. Piece 2 and 3 are the ones that turn out to be the stand, and piece 4 is your base that already has the slotted holes for you to weld as your base and adjust forward and backward, or left and right, in or out, or whatever you want to call it. So that's what this bracket is already basically set up and made for you to do that. So it's pretty slick in that regard if you're creative enough and you can do the cuts. So let's do the cuts. Let's set it up and let's do a quick tack weld. So the question is, how do you get this floating motor assembly to affix to this central mounting bracket? And the answer is within the other two pieces that you have. Now, this doesn't need to be super strong, but it needs to be strong enough so it can hold the window in and not move. So this bracket here is a great first starting point. So what we're going to do is we're just going to hold it with one hand, and we're going to try to tack it with the other, basically one at a time, and just get it tacked in and see how everything lines up. Where you put it, make sure there's no interferences, that it moves up and down, and it's not hitting anything like the back of the seat belt or the actual ledge. So now that you got this all tacked up, and it's pretty strong, I mean it's not, it still needs to be tacked more, but you can now take this off and you can go back and tack it on the bench. So let me take this off and we'll take a look at it on the bench to see how everything lines up. Okay guys, now we're back at the bench and we have taken the bracket off and we took a look at what we did here. We just got 2 tacks in there, so it's really weak, but you can do it. You can do this on the car. You can set it up and rig it in the right position that you want with a welder, with the big clamp on the end, or you can clamp it to a safer ground point, but I was just doing it for demonstration. I do not condone that or at least support that in any way. It's pretty rudimentary and very difficult to do. So what I did to make things a little bit easier for myself was I made a jig with a complete bracket. Basically sits right in here, finds the mounting points, you just weld in all the pieces, and you're good. So guys, this is a service that I can provide to you guys upon request. Please contact me if you want me to do it. When I first did the prototype, I welded them on the car. Do not recommend doing that. If you want your own brackets, contact me and we'll go through some sort of a program where we replace cores or whatever. But I can do it for you if you want. All right, so now that the glue is dried on the windows, let's get back and finish the final installation. Look at this bottle cap I'm using to prop that window open, huh? Pretty creative, huh? That's the creativity you get here with Garageaholic. Hey, so I got this nub on and it is glued on. It is tight. It's not going anywhere. I'm excited to get the window motor back on. Let's do the driver's side and show you how to get this thing reassembled. All right, guys, so we're bouncing back and forth here between passenger and driver, but we're going to reassemble the driver here. You can see the window is now in a position where it's closing. The motor is in its fully retracted position, which is good. And now what we need to do is we need to get the actual motor connected to, we're going to do it this way. We just took the piece off and we're just going to slide it on over. Just like that. Okay. Bring it in. Hook it up to the ball. Okay. Ball's hooked up. Twist this guy. The right feeling for it. Here we go. It is sealed and it's pulled in all the way. Then we just got to put the rear on right here. Now that we get everything reassembled and adjusted, let's put everything. All right, guys, that just about does it for this 4th edition of the E30 S62 Life After People. Hey, we just did the E46 automatic flyout restoration retrofit on the E30 here. If you have any questions or comments about what I did today, or if I wasn't descriptive enough about anything, please leave a comment. Contact me one way or another. You guys know how to contact me at garageaholic.build and let me know what you think. Thank you very much, guys, for watching. Have a wonderful day. Later.